Headline from East Cleveland. Authorities believe they could very well have a serial killer in custody. 3 bodies found already. Investigators say they've been told by the suspect there could be more, all of them women. Police, the Sheriff's Department, the FBI, all on the scene tonight.
All 7 defendants share one horrifying truth. They all murdered innocent children. But today, they are about to learn that no courtroom, no matter how hallowed, can shield them from the wrath of a grieving parent. The death of a young child is always heartbreaking, but it becomes even more chilling when that life is stolen in an act of brutality. Take the case of 11-week-old Parker Bowes, whose life was cut short by the very person meant to protect him, his father. Inside the Gibson County Courthouse, Judge Robert Sigma prepared to deliver the final verdict in the trial of Quinn Bowes, a man convicted of an unthinkable crime, taking the life of his own infant son. However, before justice could be served by the court, someone else inside the courthouse was about to deliver their own form of retribution. For years, a small Indiana town had known peace until May 2018, when that peace was shattered. Parker Bowes was found lifeless, his fragile body bearing the unmistakable signs of blunt force head trauma. At first, one might suspect a stranger, a lurking predator in the night. But the truth was far more disturbing. Parker had been attacked by his own father, 23-year-old Quinn Bowes. As investigators pieced together the horrific details of Parker's final moments, the evidence pointed directly to Quinn. Despite his claims that the baby's bruises were the result of an accident, authorities were unconvinced. Charged with first-degree murder, Quinn faced the possibility of spending 40 years behind bars. However, the course of justice took an unexpected turn when his trial was suddenly canceled. Instead, a plea agreement was reached, reducing his charges. In exchange for the dismissal of the more severe first-degree murder charge, Quinn pleaded guilty to a Level 2 felony charge of domestic battery resulting in death, a decision that significantly...
Judge has sentenced Quinn Bowes to 19 years in prison and 6 years probation.
The final judgment in Quinn Bowes' case was 25 years, with 19 to be served in prison and the remaining 6 on probation. As he was led out of the courtroom to begin his sentence, emotions ran high. Overcome with an overwhelming mix of grief and fury, Jeremiah Hartley, affectionately known as Matt, the baby's uncle, could no longer contain his pain. In a moment that would forever be seared into the memories of those present, Matt lunged at Bowes, unleashing his raw and unbridled anguish. His actions, though driven by heartbreak, resulted in a battery charge and 179 days in jail for contempt of court. Fast forward to June 2022, when another courtroom became the stage for an equally dramatic confrontation. In Cincinnati, inside the Hamilton County Common Pleas Court, Dean Brown sat quietly, awaiting the verdict for his heinous crimes. But what he didn't anticipate was the father of his 3-year-old victim taking justice into his own hands. Dean Brown, a 23-year-old man, found himself at the center of a case that sent shockwaves through the community, sparking outrage and sorrow. His victims, Nytasia Lattimore and her 3-year-old son Neo, suffered an unfathomable fate. On December 5, 2020, Nytasia was brutally stabbed to death, her lifeless body abandoned in her Walnut Hills apartment for days. However, the horror didn't end there. In a chilling act of cruelty, Brown attempted to dispose of her remains in the Ohio River. But his depravity went even further. He made an incomprehensible decision that still haunts the city. With Neo still alive, terrified, and helpless, Brown mercilessly threw him into the river as well. The boy's body was never recovered, leaving an unfillable void in the hearts of his loved ones and a deep scar on the city itself. As the investigation progressed, the evidence began to reveal a chilling narrative of premeditation and cover-up. One particularly disturbing detail stood out. Brown had obtained a body bag before the crime, a clear indication that his actions were not impulsive, but meticulously planned. This revelation only deepened the horror of an already unthinkable act, exposing the calculated cruelty behind his crimes.
Tonight, a new motive revealed for the killings of a 3-year-old and his mother. Deshaun Brown is accused of murdering Nytasia Lattimore and her son Nilo in 2020. Reporter Courtney Francisco joins us live now. And Courtney, detectives say this motive could have stemmed from a miscarriage that woman had?
According to reports, Nytasia Lattimore had been pregnant with Brown's child, but tragically suffered a miscarriage. However, Brown refused to accept this reality and instead convinced himself that she had intentionally ended the pregnancy. Consumed by a desire for revenge, he carried out his brutal crime. Brown was later arrested and charged with aggravated murder, tampering with evidence, and gross abuse of a corpse. In his defense, his legal team argued that he suffered from bipolar disorder, claiming this should exempt him from the death penalty. However, the judge ruled that while Brown may indeed have bipolar disorder, it did not impair his ability to exercise rational judgment or comprehend the nature, consequences, or wrongfulness of his actions.
Suffered from a severe mental illness at the time of the offenses charged, and that severe mental illness significantly impaired his capacity to exercise rational judgment.
No one in the courtroom was prepared for what was about to unfold, a powerful collision of raw emotion and legal proceedings that would leave an unforgettable mark on all who witnessed it. As the trial continued, Neo's father, Antonio Hughes, could no longer contain the overwhelming rage brewing inside him. In a moment of sheer heartbreak and fury, he lunged at Brown with a ferocity that was both shocking and deeply tragic. The sight of a grieving father, driven beyond the limits of restraint, would remain etched in the minds of everyone present. Though his actions were fueled by an unbearable loss, Hughes was ultimately sentenced to 7 days in jail for contempt of court. Meanwhile, in the Wayne County Circuit Court, another harrowing case was reaching its conclusion. As the gavel came down to seal the fate of Jasmine Gordon and Clifford Thomas convicted, in a case that sent shockwaves through the community, the courtroom's solemn atmosphere was about to be shattered once more. Just as the duo received their sentencing, the father of their 3-year-old victim had a final message for them, an emotional outpouring of pain and fury that would serve as his parting gift. The tragic case centered around the complicated relationship between Jasmine, her boyfriend Clifford, and little Jamila Smith, a 3-year-old child who depended on the couple for care and protection. That fragile trust was destroyed on September 18, 2014, when Jamila was rushed to the hospital unresponsive. As emergency medical technicians fought to save her, they pressed Jasmine for answers only to be met with silence. A forensic pathologist later painted a grim picture of Jamila's final moments. The child's tiny body bore undeniable signs of abuse, abrasions, internal bleeding, and a torn pancreas, injuries so severe they left no doubt about the horrors she had endured. Her death was ruled a homicide, and both Jasmine and Clifford were swiftly apprehended. Throughout the trial, emotions ran high, particularly as medical personnel provided heartbreaking testimonies confirming the abuse Jamila had suffered. The Akyei courtroom became a battleground of grief, anger, and the relentless pursuit of justice for an innocent life taken too soon.
This child had over 50 injuries, and they were at various stages of healing. The medical examiner also testified that it is highly unlikely that this child could have inflicted these wounds upon herself, even if she...
As the court proceedings continued, Jamila's grieving father, Dwayne Smith, reached his breaking point. In an unexpected outburst of rage and sorrow, he struck Clifford Thomas with a powerful blow to the jaw, igniting a sudden brawl. Deputies swiftly intervened, pulling the two men apart before the situation could escalate further. In the aftermath, Judge Margaret Van Houten chose not to hold Smith in contempt, and Thomas declined to press charges. When the courtroom settled, the judge delivered the final sentencing. Jasmine Gordon received 7 to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter, along with an additional 14 to 25 years for first-degree child abuse. As an aider and abetter, Clifford Thomas was sentenced to 6 to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter and an additional 1 to 2 years for resisting and obstructing a police officer. Despite the legal closure, Smith's pain remained raw. "Right now, I guess we're supposed to forgive this clown who took my child," he said, his voice filled with grief and frustration. While the cases so far have focused on the murders of young children, our next case involves a killer who didn't target a child. But still, in the hearts of their parents, every victim remains a child. This painful truth is what led Van Terry, the father of one of 3 victims of Ohio serial killer Michael Madison, to leap over a table in court and attack the defendant just minutes after the judge pronounced a death sentence. Step inside the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court, where this dramatic scene unfolded. Michael Madison's troubled childhood was marked by neglect and hardship, growing up without the warmth of a loving family. As he stumbled into adulthood, his name began surfacing in the criminal underworld, accumulating a lengthy record of drug convictions beginning in the early 2000s. However, his crimes escalated in 2002 when he was convicted of attempted rape, earning him a place on the sex offender registry. But this was merely a prelude to the horrors that would follow. On July 19, 2013, Madison's reign of terror came to light when police responded to complaints of a foul odor emanating from a garage he had leased. What they discovered inside would shock the community: a decomposing body wrapped in plastic. The investigation quickly escalated, and within 24 hours, law enforcement uncovered 2 more bodies, one buried in a backyard, the other hidden in the basement of a vacant house. The chilling proximity of the bodies, all found within 100 to 200 yards of each other and wrapped in plastic, painted a grim picture of a calculated and methodical killer. Soon, a chilling headline swept across East Cleveland. Authorities believe they may have a serial killer in custody. 3 bodies have been found so far, and investigators say the suspect has hinted there could be more. Police, the sheriff's department, and the FBI are all on the scene tonight. With the city in shock and investigators racing against time, the terrifying truth about Michael Madison's brutal crimes was finally coming to light.